Now let's implement the part that writes the code to the database. And before I do that, I'm actually going to go ahead and refactor this code a little bit. So I'm going to take the root path here, and I'm going to move it into my constants file. And so I'm going to put this in share constants, root directory. And then here I'm going to access root directory. And since I'm going to be using that in my index.php, I need to make sure that share constants gets loaded. Assets includes share constants. Let's make sure that works still. So reload. Should have gotten a new email. And I did. Okay, so we're in good shape. So let's go ahead and in user.php we're calling this store verification function. And we're going to need to have a column in the database to put that in. So let's go to localhost and go to phpMyAdmin. And under the SharerDatabase, the user table, we're going to go ahead and go to the structure tab here, and we're going to add a new column. So for verified users, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the role. So by default, your role is user, and if you verified, it's going to be verified user, assuming that's less than 16 characters. So I don't actually need a separate column for whether the user is verified or not, but I do need a column to store the code. So I'm going to add one column after role. And I said that this was going to be exactly 10 characters. So we're going to start with text, 10 characters. And let's call the name verification code. We're not going to specify a default value, and we'll use the default settings for everything else. So save, and then browse. So now, if we look at the data, we see that there's a new column for verification code, and it's just empty for all the users that have been registered already. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to get rid of all of these test users. So check all, and then delete, and confirm. So now I'm starting with a clean table. And so let's start by implementing a store verification code in SharerDatabase. So we're going to follow the same structure as most of our other functions. We're going to get a connection. Colon, connect, and then make a safe username. And also make a safe code. Though actually this code, our program created that, so we don't have to worry about escaping it. So let's make the query. And this is going to be a SQL update statement. And that's going to be update, and then the table name, set verification code equal, and then the string code where, and then the username is equal to username, single quoted string username. And I'm going to go ahead and put spaces there. So that should find the row where the username column matches username. Make sure that we have the right column name here. Yep. And then update the value of the verification code field with whatever the code was passed in. And then we're going to execute that query. So let's see if that works. Oh, and I should use safe username here. Okay, so let's go ahead and register a new user. And I'm going to go ahead and every time the user registers an account, I'm going to send that verification email. So if I get here and register, that means that the account was created correctly. So I'm going to call the send verification. And then I don't need the test function and index anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I'll just leave the island there for now. And then we'll go back here and hit reload. That should not have resulted in a new email. And it didn't. Now I'm going to go ahead and sign up, create a new account, mark, email address, password, confirm. So I think I had an error. So here's what I'm going to do to find the error. I'm going to go to the network tab and I'm going to hit OK again. And then I'm going to look at the result from do register. So I have an error message, username already exists, please try a different one. So it actually did create the account, so let me try it again. There, so here's the error I got last time. And then so I'm in line 102 of user.php. And I have an uncut exception. Fatal error, uncut error class, share email not found in user.php. So I need to make sure that share email is getting loaded in my do register. So it's actually do register now that's resulting in the email being sent. So do register needs to include share email. Okay, and then I'll hit reload. Now I'll go ahead and log out and I'll sign up, create an account, mark 3, and say OK. So now let's look at what we got. Undefined constant root directory, so I need to make sure that share constants gets loaded here as well. And actually, I shouldn't need to reload. Okay, so username already taken. Let's try another one. Okay, and that time it worked. So should have emails, actually several emails probably. Just two. So here's the most recent one. And we have 295p share, and the code should be R6PKG and so on. So let's go back to the Browse tab, mark for R6PKG. So ends in PN, ends in PN. So we're saving the value correctly. It does occur to me though that when I click on this link, it's not actually the email address that I want, it's the username that I want. Because I'm going to use that to look up the verification code. I don't want to look up the email address because there can be multiple accounts that need to be verified that are associated with that email address. So let's fix that before we end this video. So in user, when I send the verification email, I'm going to change this to username and this pointer username. And then the other thing is, if the username has funny characters in it that break URLs, I might get a bad URL in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to escape the URL. So instead of just using this pointer username, I actually want to call URL encode on that. Encoded username is URL encode this pointer username. And then I'm going to include encoded username, like so. So we'll be sure to test that with some funny characters to make sure it's encoded correctly. So let's go ahead and register a new account, log out, sign up, and this time I'm going to put some funny characters in here. So I'll say Mark, and then we'll put an I tab, Goodman, and how about some curly brackets and a $sign, and some slashes, and an ampersand, and an equal sign, and a question mark. Okay, so that's a funny username. And then we'll fill in the rest of the stuff. Okay, so that worked. This is just getting set as text, so it looks fine. And then let's look at the email we get. Great. So let's copy this link location, and I'll paste it into the browser so I can see it. So good. So you see that it's escaped all of the funny characters in that URL string, converted them to hexadecimal. So, so this is safe for a link, and I can click on that now and it will work correctly. And then on the other side, I have to remember to URL decode this value in order to recover the original username. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at the user data again. And here's the new account that I just created. And there's my verification code, NFK ends in CZ, and NFK ends in CZ.